Hi there YouTube, it is Cage Side London, and today we have a very special piece. It's going to be talking about the forgotten voice of the UFC Octagon. If you wouldn't mind and you like this video, please feel free to subscribe. You'll see that pop up right now, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all MMA and UFC content as well as wrestling. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, you might be familiar with Mike Goldberg. This is the forgotten voice of the Octagon. You would be familiar with his commentary all the way up until January 1st, 2017. If you ain't familiar, this is why he is the forgotten voice of the Octagon. You will be familiar with some of his catchphrases such as "Here we go" and "That's it." You know, them sort of catchphrases, and also he was actually a very big vocal piece on commentary with Joe Rogan. So just to give us a brief overview, Mike Goldberg started his career in 1997 at UFC Japan. This was just after UFC 15, and it featured Randy Couture, who is a UFC Hall of Famer and legend in his own right, up until the 2016, which we'll get to in a bit. Mike Goldberg done numerous commentary pieces with Joe Rogan, and in 2016 he departed from the UFC. It wasn't his own choice, it was actually the choice of Dana White and those above, those who will be, which will be the Fertitta brothers, or potentially, as we'll get into in a bit, with the merger, with the sale of the UFC at that time. So 1997 is when he began. This was prior to when Zuffa bought the UFC in January 2001 for $2 million. Now that was with Dana White in there as well with a 9% stake, whereas the Fertitta brothers, so Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, both having 80% stake in the company. Fast forward to UFC 207, which was December 31st, 2016, and it was Mike Goldberg's last commentary appearance. Looking back at this, we can see that they was gearing up for a commentary change, keeping Joe Rogan being the voice, the technical voice of the Octagon for the period of time, you know, for quite a long period of time, whereas Mike Goldberg was more of a hype man. And you'll be able to see in some of these Reddit posts that I'm going to be bringing up that he actually wasn't really just technical in what he was saying. It was very vague. Even the fan base to this day, if you go back to watch his UFC commentary, a lot of people say it was very vague, but they did like the hypeness, and it was a familiar face of the Octagon and voice of the Octagon, and it's something that, you know, we can look back within nostalgia, and you knew who was on commentary, and it was a big part of the brand as a whole. So UFC 207 was the last one, as I said, 31st of December 2016, and that was following the $4 billion sale of the UFC to WME, so William Morris Endeavor. So currently what we know as Endeavor, or combined now as TKO with the combined purchase. And that was sold to them for $4 billion. That being that, you know, Dana White would sell his 9% stake in that company and, you know, sell that. So Dana White got 360 million. This ties in very well because it's very hard to pinpoint whether this is a Dana White decision, or I don't think it will be the Fertitta brothers. Dana White potentially advising WME that, you know, he wants to get rid of Mike Goldberg, or whether this was Endeavor themselves and they looked at the product and they went, look, we need someone more technical in terms of commentary, and we want to get rid of Mike. Mike actually had some rumours prior to that, you know, he was potentially in rehab for I believe for drug use, for pill use, which you'll see. I'm going to show you up some of the content now in terms of them posts, and it was a really big speculation at the time that he was actually in rehab for this. Whether or not that played a part and whether it was too much of a liability, we do not know the underlying reasons to this day exactly why he was let go. And actually, Dana White confirmed his departure on December the 28th, 2016. So literally days before his actual final commentating position. And what was really striking was when you look at UFC 207, which was headlined by Amanda Nunes, and you're looking at that, and they didn't do a video package or anything. It was literally Mike Goldberg's last commentary. They just skimmed over it as if it was no big deal, and then that was it. They went off the air. No more Mike Goldberg. Now, the MMA community, myself included, following the sport personally from UFC 100, so 2009, when it was headlined by Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar. That was when I was really, in tune with the product. For people like myself, that was familiar with the product, and up until that point, 107 pay-per-views down the line, where back in that day the pay-per-view schedule wasn't as frequent as what it is today. So having that as a vocal point during this time period, just during that time period, and just for him to just be gone like that with a click of a finger, says a lot, really. Us as fans, a lot of the fan base wanted more from Mike. Being that he played such a part in the build up prior to even when Zuffa bought the company in 2001. He was there, 1997, alongside Joe Rogan. So yeah, it was pretty hard on us as fans to take that, and us as fans, as well as Mike himself, was actually displeased with this. So Dana White confirmed his departure. In December 20, as I was saying, Mike Goldberg wasn't too happy with that. So what happened there is that Mike vented his frustration out on social media and to the media in general in regards to, how he was let go. He wasn't pleased about it. It wasn't his decision, and he felt as if he was just thrown to the side with no consideration. And he was actually quite bitter about it. And him and Dana White, you can look back on interviews, he would say that it wasn't the best of friends. I don't know whether he hated me or not, Mike would say, but we wasn't the best of friends. We wasn't pen pals. Just fast forward to December 2022, there was an interview on the MMA Hour, and in the interview, Mike Goldberg now has a different opinion on that. He now can look back on his time with the UFC with fonder memories, and he's brushed that to the side, he's brushed that underneath the carpet, trying to move forward with himself, in his life. After his departure from the UFC in January, or say late December 2016, January 2017, so bear in mind there he spent 20 years inside the business, just shy, you might as well call it 20 years. No, sorry, it would be 19 years because he made his announcing debut in December 1997. So, yeah, 19 years. He then moved on to Bellator, which was at the time the second biggest promotion competing with the UFC. And they had quite a decent roster at the time. People like MVP were signed. You had numerous other pieces of talent. Michael Chandler was big at the time, and he was one of the poster boys for that brand. Now currently in the UFC, obviously, but they was actually strong competitors for the UFC. Not so much now, but he then done a stint commenting for Bellator from June 2017 until April 2021, and now he currently works with BYB Extreme Fighting Series and Pro Box TV. So he's still in the commentary space, but as I was saying, a lot of Reddit comments and so on and so forth are pinpointing the fact that he was so vague in his commentary, and that's why we then got the replacements of DC, John Anik, these type of people. And bear in mind, these are good commentators. These guys know what they're talking about. It's quite obvious. But the brand as a whole was moving in a different direction. He had quite a lot of pay-per-views, quite a lot of time, 19 years of experience. You'd think that he would actually get to pronounce the fighters' names correctly, know the technicalities of the moves, and when in his commentary pieces, he would, execute them well and know what he's talking about, especially with 19 years of commentary experience within the business. But he didn't, and that is really his downfall and his letdown. He done good in terms of hyping up the fight, but I think the fan base as a whole needed some more of them technicality pieces. And yeah, he did hype up the fights. It was good for the casuals, for the first time listeners. But at that point, we're talking 2017, the UFC established themselves as a big, big global brand. It wasn't the building blocks of what it once was. It was now an established brand. And for that, they needed someone, who can actually speak the talk the talk, walk the walk. Whereas Mike Goldberg was very vague in his answers and his commentary pieces. So it's a split decision. Was Mike Goldberg correct to be let go at the time? And do you miss it? Is it just a nostalgia piece? If so, please do let me know in the comments below. But yeah, for me personally, looking back on it, it's more of a nostalgia thing for me. I really did like Mike Goldberg in terms of commentary, his hypeness, in terms of fights, and his catchphrases within them fights is what made it for me. I always looked forward to catching the UFC pay-per-views when he was on commentary with Joe Rogan, and they was like the dream team. It was like Laurel and Hardy. You couldn't at that period of time, you couldn't not think of Mike Goldberg without Joe Rogan and vice versa. But times change, and we move forward. That is my piece on Mike Goldberg in terms of the forgotten voice of the Octagon. And in some ways he will be forgotten because a lot of the fan base, the newer fan base that have come into sport, may never know of Mike Goldberg and what he brought to the industry and what he brought to the sport, because he really was a part of that foundation in terms of the building blocks for what we now know it is today, which he needs to be given his flowers. And hence why I'm doing this video, so that if you haven't heard of him, please do go and check out some of his commentary and let me know what you think. Was he vague? What do you think of his commentary pieces? A lot of people on Reddit, as I said, to look back on that, too vague, it wasn't comprehensive enough. But for me personally, at that time, he did bring what we was looking for. That is it. Cage Side London is out of here, and please do like, comment and subscribe. I will much greatly appreciate it. And you can stay up to date with anything UFC, MMA related, as well as wrestling oriented as well. So, and I will be doing some more pieces like this in future videos. So until next time, guys, take care of yourselves and peace out.